again, I was sharing some proper heartfelt things,
I know.
and then it was just like disappeared into the ether. It was probably I was oversharing.
Yeah, it was meant for us and the whoever was online.
That's a good reminder, isn't it, to listen live?
Yep.
So this week's topic is about calling and purpose, and as always, there's no plan, there's no forethought other than just following the thread of what comes up in a particular week. So you said to me this week, Mo, oh, I had never really put two and two together that it was after your Bufo experience that you actually quit your job and finally went full time with humility. And neither had I really. I just kind of tracked back that that was one of those moments that felt really pivotal. But as we've shared before with Bufo, the integration so much is about what unfolds in the aftermath, and not necessarily having a plan or comprehension of exactly how your life, the course of your life is going to change. And yet I thought we could speak quite broadly about these concepts, calling and purpose, because in the modern world they often get mixed up with vocation and
Yes.
polluted by our desire to be safe and to make money, and those things are prioritized in a way that buries that sense of purpose deep within us. And at least my perspective is that it is something inherent that we are born with, not in a necessarily a sort of determinist way, but that we are all here for a reason, and the most important piece of work that we can do in this lifetime is to uncover that mission and then to execute.
Yeah, I agree. When I first entered into the world of personal development and spiritual development, like consciously, we're talking early 20s, so over 20 years ago, I was obsessed with what's my purpose? What's my purpose? What's my purpose? And where I've landed right now, it's the purpose reveals itself. And we go through life. And I agree, we have a calling, a soul's calling. The word I was introduced was the telos, like your one chief aim. And if you imagine that's up there as a light, just the way a tree grows towards the sun, we go towards the light, but we forget that purpose that we're born with and we go off on a tangent. And then life will hit us hard, stops us to then give us an opportunity to look at what's important and always try to go back. And so if we listen to those calls, we can be more aligned with that. But if we don't, we go further and further away and we wilt and die without fulfilling that calling. And so we spoke about death last week, and like my cancer was exactly that. I'd gone so far away from my calling. I was waking up at 4 o'clock typing emails for work, and work in my moment of need put me at risk of redundancy. Like that's how much they cared about me.
Yeah.
And now I feel I'm more in line with my telos. I'm waking up and I actually love what I'm doing and I feel that purpose and meaningful work. So yeah, it's a great topic.
Yeah, and what was that process like for you? No.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, can you hear me or
No,
no?
no, I can. Yes.
Okay, okay, good, good. Um, yeah, can you talk a bit more about that process, the wake up call, and how you got out of that space of just making a living and existing into really answering that call?
Yeah. As we are tracing back and connecting the dots, it's quite synchronous because the time you quit your legal career and went full time with Numinity, I stumbled into the world of properties and property agency work. And I quit my job at around the same time. And at the time, our relationship was one of coach coachee. So I really didn't have an idea of what was going on behind the scenes with you or with Numinity. But for me at that time, it was pain. Like my soul hurt. everything I did to survive wasn't to make, the way I described it, greedy landlords more money. And it was so aching, so destroying. And I knew I couldn't carry on. It was killing me. And it was shadow work that really got me out of that. I just knew I couldn't do this. And it was from pain. And like that leap of faith in terms of I had no idea what I was going to do, but I surrendered and I discovered shadow work, I discovered Jung, and then plant medicine came into my world very synchronistically. And again, it was a case of I couldn't ignore this, and I just kept following the thread, and it just aligned, and my interests aligned into what you were building, are building in Humanity, and that unfolding just it's I want to say like a fairy tale, but you can't make this up. You can't.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. And as you talk about it, I am reminded of the immense courage that it takes to change direction. And in general, the longer that you've been on a particular path, the more courage that it requires to stop in your tracks and do something different. And that fear, that resistance to change, fear of the unknown, the fear of stepping out of the comfortable, very comfortable. It's for me that I can't think of anything less comfortable than working a full-time legal job again. But yeah, the known, the devil you know,
Yeah,
right? And so there's that sense of safety and the familiarity, and Bufo can be so powerful and helpful in terms of showing us that it's safe to be blasted out of our comfort zone into a space that's foreign but beautiful and ultimately so much more fulfilling. And with that, we get the opportunity to embrace answering the call and following our purpose. It's in all of us. We have these gifts, we have this coherent narrative of our life that's pointing us in a specific direction. And so much of the time, we are refusing to look at it because we're terrified to move beyond our known reality. And a lot of that is biological, but it's also, the neural pathways in our brain. And when we work with Bufo, we have an opportunity to start wiring and firing new pathways that can really help us, once they're integrated, take those necessary steps to answer the call.
yeah. It's you know, it's so powerful. Where as you were sharing, I just like we all have as kids full of joy. There are things we love doing where we could just play for hours and hours, and then life becomes serious. And that you talked about your legal career, that there was a comfort, if I can project, in the security of the money you were making, and to put that aside and go after something else. It takes a huge amount of courage, because that safety isn't there, or that, I want to use the word security, isn't there
Yeah,
necessarily.
definitely, definitely. And I, for the longest time, was just doing both because I had started to see the significance of this work and being in service, and how necessary that was to my own sense of purpose and well-being. And yet there was still so much unconscious fear around money, around not having money if I were to step away from my full-time job. Also, the integrity of the work, like, would it be compromised if I had to make a living from it? Because it was a really wonderful phase
Mm,
of building with no financial pressure whatsoever, to just know that I could act in complete alignment from the heart, never thinking about does it need to be profitable. If it's loss making, that's fine. I can take the hit. And so there was so much wrapped up in that that was telling me that the right thing to do, not only from a financial perspective, but also from an integrity perspective, was to keep my full-time job. And I was working so hard because it's a legal job is no, it's no joke. It's no joke. And I was also using all of my holiday to go and run retreats and do events and just had no free time and no personal life. And I know that to a certain extent, that's what it's like with a new business. But when I was in the Bufo realm and I just felt that sense of stillness and peace and recognition that these are qualities that I want to create more of in my life, that I want to cultivate more space for, it just seemed laughable that I could continue working the way that I was. And I was able to see so clearly this is the family shadow of my lineage, is the disconnected, avoidant workaholic. And so we do this. We love to just work, and disconnect from feeling and living. And whilst I was doing it in what might seem on the face of it a very sort of noble, meaningful way, I was still repeating the cycle. And in that space of peace and quiet and stillness, it was just so obvious, like I need to take that leap now and experience what it's like to focus on the thing that I'm here to do. And it certainly wasn't easy. All of the money scripts, all of the money shadow came up once I took that leap, and it's the integration period to work through. But it gives you that blueprint, that baseline experience of what exists beyond all of the stories, all of the conditioning that have set you on the course of your life that you're on today.
Yeah, and I know a lot about your background and your story and how what you're doing connects to like your interests in terms of singing and dancing, and you being able to weave that into your work. So when we talk about purpose, as I was saying earlier, like as kids we love doing certain things, and you have been able to kind of create work which gives you joy. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, totally, totally. And I want to clarify that, like, the answers for all of us, that it's within, and it's in our history, it's in our personal history, it's in, like you said, that your gifts are things that bring you joy, the coherent narrative to your life arc. We're not going into the Bufo realm to find the answers. We're going into the Bufo realm to see beyond the conditioning and the stories that are
Mm,
blocking us from already seeing what's inside of us. And that it's hard to muddle through in your day-to-day life, because this conditioning, it runs so deep.
yeah. And for me with Bufo, it was that no fear, like just pure love and peace. And so in day-to-day reality, fear does come up still, but I'm able to close my eyes and return to that realm and remind myself there is fear, but I don't need to live in that fear. And talking about purpose, and as we revisit our Bufo experiences and connecting the dots, I'm giving a talk on Saturday, and the way I put together my talks is like I kind of equate it to a singer delivering a concert. So however long the slot is, for me it's an hour, and an hour is a long time to speak. But I pick my stories just the way a singer will pick their songs, and through my stories I'll weave the lessons and the narrative or the bigger story that I want to share. But 2004, I had to speak for the first time. I wanted to run for student union elections, and you had to get up and give a talk in front of students. And it was one of the most daunting experiences of my life, where I could feel the sweat dripping down my sides. My heart was like pounding, my legs were jelly. And after 5 minutes of just anger, I came off the stage and I fainted. The guy who was running the elections had to get water and call first aid, and I wanted to quit. But I turned up the next day and delivered another talk. I learned the lessons. I spoke slower and all of that. But that second talk got me elected. And then 10 years later, I'm at the stage again. Whereas the first time round, I was asking for people to vote for me. Second time round, I was asking people to save my life, where I had to get up and pitch for my crowdfunding campaign. And then I fast forward another 10 years, where the speaking is what I love, and that's what lights me up. And I share this because if I come out of that fear and go into that Bufo realm, there's what's stopping me from really saying, okay, right now. I mean, I've got my book here, which is the brand new talk. So all the pieces have kind of come together, and it's following the thread of the plant medicine world that has got me here, where each time I've worked with medicine, it reveals another piece for me. And following that thread, you might remember last year coming out of the ayahuasca retreat, the medicine said, oh, you need to start from a blank sheet. And literally 2 months later, I started from a blank sheet. And a year later, the book is out, the new talk is out. And so I'm not sure if I'm making any sense here, if this is coherent, but the thread is remove like acknowledging this fear, but then knowing that that fear is not always rational. It's sometimes it's irrational, and if we can take that bird's eye view and put that fear away and just follow that thread, magical things can happen.
Yeah, for sure. And if we talk a lot about the quote, the thing that you most want is on the other side of the fear. And nowhere is that more true than when it comes to your purpose. If we live life from that fear, we are completely blocked from our why, our how. Because let's take that example of you speaking. If you had experienced fainting coming off stage and just continued to operate from that past experience, your psyche would have told you, I'm not good at this. This is
Yeah,
overwhelming for me. My nervous system can't handle this. I must be here to do something else. You're one of the best speakers I've ever heard, Mo. You're amazing. And yet that could have been the final nail in your coffin if you
yeah,
continue to live from that place of fear. And so many people do. And I hate to say this, but it's particularly rife within spiritual communities, because we love saying, oh, my intuition, this, when in reality, it's the projection of your lived experience and your trauma onto your present day reality. And it feels like, oh yeah, it's intuitive, and it's not. We have to get beyond that fear to really get to truth at a soul level, deep in our gut, resonant truth. And to do that requires the dissolution of self and the narratives, and that's where Bufo can be particularly helpful.
yeah, 100%. I was on the verge of quitting. I came back, and here we are now, and it's just so blessed to have had that Bufo experience. To just once, we've shared the quote that once you touch the infinite, you can't not touch it. And it's it's something that we can always hold as a reference point.
Absolutely. Let's leave it there, Mo. Great yapping as always. And we are down to our last two spots for the retreat. So if you've been on the fence, get off the fence now. Get on the train, drop us a message, and
Bye, Melissa.
my phone just started ringing at that moment. Maybe it was someone answering the call.
The call. Once you get the call, hang up.
Awesome.
See you
Thanks,
later.
Mo. See ya.
Bye.